is Dr. Richard Barwell. I'm a chiropractor. I practiced most of my career in British Columbia, Canada. I was down in Australia for 3 years, and then have enjoyed just tremendous responses in chiropractic. But one of them stands out in my mind tremendously, and it was one of those things that I'd heard about all the years I've been a student and talking to chiropractors about these wonderful miracle things that happen in offices. And I always hoped I would see one of those in my practice and realize finally it was me that was stopping it. I had a wonderful situation happen with a young girl named Jill. Her mother brought her in. Her mother was actually coming in for care. And she brought in Jill, and Jill at that time was about 2 years old. But she was catatonic. There was just nothing there, nobody home. And they had taken Jill to places all over the world. They'd taken her to England and through Canada, through the States, and they said that there was nothing that they could see that they could do. And the mother was in for care, and I was so enamored by what was going on with this baby who just literally lay there, and if you put her arm in a position, it stayed that way. There was no sign of recognition of life in this child whatsoever. And I sort of have to apologize to the mother because my attention was not on her. And finally I said, can I look at your daughter? Can I look at Jill? And she said, oh, certainly. So I checked Jill out, and I did a little bit of cranial work with her. And nothing much happened, of course, at that moment. And I had her coming in about 3 times a week, so I said, please bring Jill every time. So they brought in Jill. And the next couple of times, nothing much. I did the same kind of light technique with this child. And then about the 4th time, as I touched her forehead, her voice came in. She just made this little grunt sound. And Mother and I looked at one another and said, well, that's interesting. Maybe it's just a burp, who knows. So the next time she came in, I touched her forehead and she went, Well, we started to realize that we were getting a response out of this child. And we continued to work with this child and doing some just very light cranial work with this child. And within the next month, this child, I would come into the room, the reception area to get her, and she would put her hands on her head like I was doing. And we'd end up in tears because this was just such a joy. And I remember so clearly and so well getting a phone call the day that Jill crawled into the fireplace. Thank goodness it wasn't on. But the mother phoned us about 9 o'clock at night, and she was in tears and talking to us about this. She's crawling into the fireplace. And we had a great cry over this, and we watched this child slowly come to life over a period of time. And it was amazing to watch. It was just an incredible response. And finally one day, and I used to tease her, she's a beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, was growing up quite nicely. She had a little facial paralysis, and that was about it. But one day, I was teasing her about a boyfriend, and then she started to say, well, she wasn't going to tell me his name. And then she went down the hall laughing, and we both realized that's the first time we'd ever heard her laugh, that she has developed a sense of humor, which told us that brain function had returned. And it was a joy, and it was something that will stay with me in my heart. I had retired from practice, and I went back into practice to help somebody out, and it was away from where I was originally in my practice, where I saw Jill. And they had moved to that town. And they brought her in, and she was 21 years old. She had a job. She was this beautiful human being. Still a little tiny paralysis on her face, but it was the joy of my life, and it made me so thankful for being a chiropractor and being able to give this gift. And so for the rest of my life, I know that these miracles work. And the only reason they hadn't been happening in my office is because I had not given chiropractic a chance to do the job. After that, I saw it happening time and time again in my office. So to Jill, I thank her. That's my miracle.